Good morning and hello everyone, Jared here. We did not get a chance to do the Monday webinar yesterday. I had a bit of a situation. So, excuse me, it's Tuesday morning and I figured I would combine the weekly wrap-up session with the Tuesday morning typical webinar that I would include for the group members, and I will make it public to everybody since we missed our webinar yesterday. So, excuse me, there's lots of great stuff to talk about, and let's get right down to it. Okay, so first of all, let's have a little quick look at the news and what we have going on this week. We've already seen a little bit of news. Some retail sales and so on for the U.S. came out better than expected. And then we have had a little bit of news already. It's Tuesday here, and you can see that we had the UK CPI came out as expected. The German zoo was a little lower than expected. And then we've got a little bit of CAD news coming up here in about 20 minutes. And then we've got some U.S. news coming up a few minutes after that, and then some New Zealand and Chinese. And anyways, there's quite a bit of stuff coming out today on Tuesday. Wednesday, you can see that there is quite a bit of news as well. Excuse me, good grief. I'm traveling a bit this week, and I am up in the cold mountains, and I think it's catching up with me. The UK has some employment numbers, always a big deal, especially since we're going to be looking at some UK pairs, so we'll keep that in mind. We have some central bank stuff for Canada, and we are absolutely looking at a lot of Canadian pairs, so this is going to be important. And then a little bit of US and so on news coming up. And then going into Thursday, we have a little bit of US and a little bit of Canadian news, and then we just all kind of sneak into Easter weekend, holiday weekend, all of that stuff. So things might get a little bit quiet going into Friday, and even going into Thursday. We'll see how that goes, but definitely going into Friday, we expect things to slow down just a bit. Okay, first off, here's some pretty good news. You can see that the euro sits just about 138.00, 138.02 to be exact. And that's pretty good news given the fact that we got short euro dollar at exactly 139.00. Now, that's not a bad entry to get in short on this pair. It's pretty darn well timed. You can see that here's 139.00 right here. The euro actually went up to 139.05 before dropping over 100 pips. So our position sits just about 100 pips in profit, and we got in almost exactly at the top of this movement. Now, here are a couple of things that I want to discuss. Number one, I don't think this is just my charts. I think you all will see a gap on the euro dollar. On the 1 hour chart, it opened a little bit lower and left this nice little gap here. So we're going to do a couple of things with this. We're going to semi-expect the market will come back and fill this gap potentially sooner than later. We'll see how that goes. That's about a little over 20 pip gap, nothing too crazy. So we are going to expect that the market's going to come back and fill that. So one thing that we'll do with our position is we'll just move our stops to break even. We'll just move our stops to break even. And then as this euro dollar moves and does the day-to-day stuff, we may take a little profit. We may do a couple of things. We'll see how this goes. The only reason I say so is because we're not quite to the end of the month. We're right halfway through the month of April, and very typically the beginning of May is where we see the big move. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see a double top or even see a new high made on euro dollar, recent high that is, before a big move down. So I could see the euro dollar maybe testing even 140 or 140-100 before dropping down to that 130-150 target that I'm looking for. Now, if it doesn't do that, I think the euro dollar is a good one to stay in regardless. I was semi expecting to see some drawdown on this thing, to see us get into it and maybe have it go against us 50 or 100 pips, which I would have almost felt better about. But we got into this thing, and it basically instantly went in our direction, and 100 pips to top it off. So very nice little movement. I'm just wondering if, looking at some of these larger time frames, we still haven't hit the 200 moving average. So we're in the absolute best direction we can be in. I just want to see if, because once again, typically May is that new high, new low kind of situation. I just want to see if we're gonna see something happen a little bit crazy before the beginning of May. So for the moment, let's move our stops to break even, and if this euro kicks us out, then we're just going to look for an entry short at a higher price, which is beneficial for us, of course. Um, you can see the weekly chart has a fantastic rising wedge. This is one of the biggest reasons that I want to be in the euro dollar. We have a great rising wedge right here. It looks awesome, and I am super glad to be into a trade like this. But, we could be headed into a double top, which would be, again, a little bit above 139.00, about 139.65 or so. I would not be surprised to see a double top there, and then a nice continuation down. So if that's the case, that's perfectly fine, perfectly fantastic. You can see some nice price rejection. This is a monthly chart, by the way, and so you can see some good price rejection up there and so on. But I love this euro dollar. Overall, I'm absolutely positively short. And obviously we're short this pair because we're up 100 pips right now in our trade. And we're going to hold on to this thing as long, as long as humanly possible until we see that 131.50 target. Now, let's make sure, though, to lock in some, break even or lock in 1 or 2 pips, and then we're going to kind of manage this, and I'll send out trade alerts to group members on any changes that I see happening here. Maybe if we take a partial profit, if this starts to work its way back up to our entry, just simply to give us a chance to get in at a higher price, which I think we will possibly be able to do. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know. Let's go to the pound dollar for just a moment. The pound dollar is an interesting pair. We've seen some pretty intense price rejection down here. As this is the daily chart, you can see that this thing has just bounced up like crazy. I still think we're probably going to see like a 170 area on the pound dollar. I think that's a pretty realistic target. So we're going to be looking for that. You can see that the pound dollar hit the 200 moving average on the 1 hour chart here, the weekly pivot for this week. Lots of price rejection, nice move back up there. I still think if we get the pound dollar down to about 166.35, that could even be a better area to get long. But it's just kind of right in this nice little bounce area, and I think we are going to see the pound dollar head a little bit higher. Now, remember, the pound dollar's got a lot of good fundamental news, but remember what we've talked about 1,000 times, which is no matter what the fundamentals are, when the technicals become so obvious, I guess you could say that the fundamentals start to line up as well. Now, remember, the technicals are telling us that this pound dollar is pretty darn overbought. You can see that the daily chart is almost 200 bars since the last touch of the 200 moving average, and we have tons of missed weekly pivot points here. Now, along those lines, I like to see a price pattern, and we do have a good price pattern here. We have a perfect little double top. Nice little double top there, and that is at 168.20. Now, if we break 168.20, let's get long pound dollar because I think this thing will make at least 100 to 150 pip a run up from 168.20. I think we're going to easily get up into that 170 area. Let's get long at the break of 168.20. We're not in anything pound dollar right now, but we are going to keep an eye on this because if this does not break above 168.20, then this very same support area that I'm talking about, which is 166.35, could be our entry point to get short. We could be getting short below 166.35, but we have to kind of see how this plays out. Right now, this is a bit of a bullish pattern, and I have a feeling we're going to break that 168.20, which if we do, gloriousness will follow because that puts us that much further away from countless missed weekly pivot points and that much further away from the 200 moving average. So that would be awesome. And that would also give us a very nice rising wedge. Right now we have just a nice little double top. If we break that high, then you can see we'll be able to draw an ascending trend line here, and we'll also be able to draw a little bit of a ascending trend line there, which should start to wedge this movement. So everything looks pretty darn Excellent, but we are waiting on the pound dollar. And again, we'll get long at the break of 168.20, which is just 100 pips or less than 100 pips away from current market price. And as May rolls around, hopefully we'll have a big, huge, fat opportunity to get hugely short pound dollar, which I would love to death. And I think we're going to get that. So let's watch this 166.35, look for a bounce or a break. A break of that level, again, could offer an opportunity to get short, but I think there's going to be some pretty incredible support right there. And so there will probably be a bounce off of that area, but I think eventually we'll get a nice little break of that, and that could be a good confirming factor. Aussie dollar, I'm not doing too much on the Aussie dollar right now. I'm going to just kind of let this thing play out. It's made a pretty nice little run. You can see some nice little trend lines, some details here. Inverted head and shoulders move pretty nicely, and so we're just kind of keeping an eye on the Aussie dollar. We'll see where this goes over the next couple of days, but nothing major there. Dollar CAD, on the other hand, I'm liking quite a bit. Remember, we've got this rising wedge. We still have several missed weekly pivot points, or, well, not several, but we've got a few. We've got at least 3 that we can see on this screen right here, and I bet we've got more if we zoom it out just a little bit. We do, so we've got 1, 2, 3, oh, never mind. So at least 3 missed weekly pivot points, which is a big deal. We've got this rising wedge. We broke out of it. It was kind of an interesting movement for a couple of days, and then it made this nice little move down with a nice little reversal. And these reversals are great because anytime a rising wedge will break and then the market pulls back to test that trend line from where it broke, that's a great opportunity to get in the direction of that breakout, which would be down. So if this comes up and tests that trend line, we're absolutely going to be looking for shorts a little bit higher, anywhere 100 pips higher than current market price kind of a thing, because we still have a very overextended 200 moving average and plenty of missed weekly pivot points. And so I think we could see a very nice run in the direction of strength on dollar CAD coming up here shortly. So I'll keep you guys advised on that. No super specific entry just yet, but probably looking to get short around 100 pips higher than current market price. I'm not doing too much on the Euro Aussie at the moment. We got some little double bottoms and some little things happening. It's consolidating nicely below this 200 moving average. You can see a couple of hammers, a couple of crazy price action details in there. So I'm just hanging tight. We've got a lot of missed weekly pivots above and a lot of missed weekly pivots below. And I think this thing is good to just kind of sit on the sidelines for a small moment. However, the pound Aussie is very interesting. Now, as I mentioned about the pound dollar, I think we're going to see more strength in the pound coming up here. Maybe short term, maybe long term, but I think we're going to at least see a little bit more pound strength. So what we have on this pound Aussie is a very nice little setup. This thing has made a nice little head and shoulders break. Remember, our price projection on this head and shoulders right here is nowhere near getting met. From the head, that neckline is anywhere from 1,000 to 1,100 pips, meaning that we can expect a price target of definitely down here at least around 170. That's a pretty realistic target, is at least 170, and I think we're going to get there. So, but it's hitting the 200 moving average, one that it hasn't touched in quite some time, and you can see some good price rejection here. So I think it's going to bounce off that 200 moving average a good little bit before it continues down to our bigger target. So what I'm positioned for here is, number one, if we break this 177.35 area, 177.35, let's just kind of make sure we keep that in mind. I'm going to put let's put a little guy right here. So that's about 177, 35-ish area. If we break that, let's absolutely get short pound Aussie. It's a nice little double bottom. It's a good solid level. We break that, let's get short. However, we do have this fairly overextended 4-hour chart. You can see that the market has not touched this 4-hour 200 moving average in a little while. It's not a crazy run, but it's definitely enough that it gets our attention, about 134 candles since the last test, and that's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger because we've got a pretty good distance to go before we touch that. We've got a missed weekly pivot up here, overlapping the monthly pivot, plenty of missed daily pivots. So what I'm looking for here, and what I would suggest, is any opportunity to get long against 177.35 area. So if we see a pullback here, and you can see an entry, within 50 pips or so, let's get long this pair, and look to trade it to the upside from there. So right now we're about 90 pips off that low. If this can pull back to about the 177, 80 area, about 50 or so pips of retracement over the next couple of hours, I will probably take that trade. And on this one, this is not a get married to stay in trade no matter what kind of a thing. This is a put your stops below this 177.35. So stops could be anywhere from 177.30, 177.20 area, because this is a nice little double bottom, and if it breaks that, I fully expect it to head a good bit lower. And if it does break that, we should be short at that break. But for the moment, that's a pretty nice double bottom. We've got some very strong candles confirming that double bottom, and we have some good reason to believe that it is going to move back up into that 200 moving average and potentially take out that weekly pivot up there. So that's what I'm looking for. I think a nice buy opportunity against 177.35 is a good idea, not a bad idea at all. But we do want to see a little bit of retracement. Again, the 1 hour chart here is both 1 hour and 4 hour charts are pretty well approaching some overbought areas, oversold. The 1 hour chart's 197 bars since the last touch. The 4 hour chart's 134 bars, I think, since the last touch of the 200 moving average. And the daily chart's just sitting on the 200 moving average, which is a great area for this to find a little bit of support, retrace just a little bit before continuing down. So if we get that bounce, which I think we will, let's just get in against this low. Again, I'd like to see entries probably around 177. 80-ish area. We want to see some retracement. If you're feeling risky and want to take an entry at the break of this high, be a little careful because we're headed right into that 200 moving average on the 1 hour chart, and I might slow the movement down just a little bit. But ultimately, I think we could very, very potentially target from that 170, 177, 80, 90 area. I think we could easily target about 180, 100 to 180, 200 area. I'm going to look a little more closely at that, but there's a couple of hundred pips on this buy entry against this low. So let's be prepared for that. This is a nice little trade, great little setup. Okay. Back to CAD pairs. CAD Swiss franc is getting tricky. It's getting interesting, and I'm loving it kind of to death. We've seen this nice falling wedge breakout, nice little move up, and it's coming down, and we're just kind of hovering around this 80 area. Now, something interesting is happening here. It's looking like it's forming a nice inverted head and shoulders pattern. Here's a shoulder right here. We've got that nice little shoulder, and you can see that the pullback here is kind of about the same area as that shoulder low. So I'm watching this, and I would still like to get in as close to lows against this 7,800 area, but it might be a little too much of a push here. We've got an inverted head and shoulders pattern, which means a very technical entry would just be the break of this now high, and even beyond that, 81.15 area at this point could take us into a nice little move up, which would be a break of this neckline of this inverted head and shoulders pattern on the daily chart. Here's one thing that has me a tiny bit curious, though. I'm not going to lie. This 4 hour chart is very much looking like it's creating a little short-term head and shoulders pattern as well. So we've got this little head and a shoulder here and a shoulder here. Now, I don't think this is going to be any huge, fantastically large movement, but I think we could break the little neckline right here that you see sitting at this double bottom area around 70. This is about 79.70 area. And if we break that, then that gives us that better opportunity to get in closer to that 7,800, which I would like. So I'm kind of waiting just a little bit. I think at this point our safest bet would be, number one, wait for a break of that 79.80 and then look to get long a little bit closer to the 7,800 low, or we get in at the break of 81.15 because that's confirmation of this inverted head and shoulders pattern. So there's two things we can do here. But I think we're right in the middle of both of those, so we need to just wait a little bit. We're obviously not super far away from the 79.70 area, and if we break that, I think there's a nice little move down because our overall target is still nicely up. But if we could get into this thing like at 7,900 or 7,850, which I'm still holding out for, which I still think we'll see, then that's awesome. But if that retracement doesn't come, then we should just get in at the break of this neckline of our now pretty obvious inverted head and shoulders pattern. So nice little move there, great little setup. Quick update on Aussie New Zealand. We're just kind of hanging on here. We're in this channel. Hopefully this channel is going to give way and give us some retracement so that we can get long against 105, 30, 40, 50 area. Still looking at that, but nothing too close at the moment. And for those trading the dollar Swiss franc, remember that this pair has got a nice falling wedge, and it's coming down into those lows there. Our lows here are basically they're pretty much exactly 8,700, so about 115 pips below current market price. We could see a nice little double bottom here, which I would love to see, and I think at that point that's a pretty good area to start getting long dollar Swiss franc. And you can get long now, but this is just a reverse of our euro dollar trade. So we're already short euro dollar, which is essentially the same as being long dollar Swiss franc. But for anyone trading this pair, nice little falling wedge, and I think we'll have a nice opportunity to get long against 8,700. So let's keep an eye on that. Quick look at euro CAD. This pair is looking very interesting, and I like it a lot. And I think we're working on a very, very nice little head and shoulders pattern. So we've got a nice little shoulder here, head here, and then we're working on this shoulder. So I think we're going to get a little more upside movement here on this Euro CAD. Then we're going to be looking to get short against these highs and play out this big head and shoulders pattern. So I'm still looking for a lot of Canadian strength. I think we're going to see it. Everything's setting up across the board on all these Canadian pairs for that strength. And so I think we still need probably 100 to 150 pips of further upside movement before I'm really excited about getting short. Otherwise, I will be looking for something more along the lines of a bit of a traditional break of some of these levels. You can see that we've got a little news hitting right now, and there's a little bit of activity going on here. So we're going to be looking at things like trend lines that look like this and that kind of stuff for opportunities to start getting short this pair in case it doesn't head up too much higher. This could potentially be the top of the shoulder. I don't know. So we just have to kind of watch that. But it is forming a nice daily head and shoulders pattern, so we're going to have a nice opportunity to get short eventually here. So I'll have more details on that, but we're not totally ready just yet. Pound CAD, same kind of situation. Pound CAD nicely heading higher here, and I think we're going to see this thing continue to head higher. What we did want to see a move up into that double top so that we can get our stops a little bit closer before we start shorting this one. And I am looking for a little more pound strength, so I think this is a great opportunity for that. You can see that we're currently about 250 or so pips from that high. And it's definitely on its move up here. So let's just kind of see how this thing behaves in this upper area before we start looking for those opportunities to get short down into this 200 moving average and all of these missed pivots and so on. So really good looking trade, really good looking setup. Everything's looking fantastic, we're definitely focused on what's happening on a euro dollar, which is just getting better. So we're now over 100 pips in profit. We're watching this pound dollar. We're going to be looking for opportunities to trade around entries around long around 166.35 or buying the break of 168.20. Holding on Aussie dollar, waiting for a little bit of a move higher on dollar CAD, and we're definitely looking for an opportunity to get into this pound Aussie against these lows, against this short-term double bottom. So we have a lot of good things in the works. Mark your charts. Be ready for everything. We have lots of good stuff coming up, and I will keep everyone updated on our coming sessions and Twitter updates and screenshots and so on. Everyone, best of luck.